Jonathan Herbst, founder and CEO of ScaleUp GROWTH. Welcome to our Business Focus series, where I chat with owners, managing directors, founders, and business leaders of scaling companies. It centers around their entrepreneurial journey so far and their aspirations for their companies and businesses. Today, it's my great pleasure to interview Rosemary McKenzie-Ferguson, who's founder at Craig's Table. Hi, Rosemary.
Hi, Jonathan. Nice to be here with you.
Yeah, and thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. So listen, why don't we jump straight in? What is Craig's Table? What do you do, and how long have you been doing it?
Craig's Table is the only registered for-purpose not-profit association within the Australian workers' compensation system, written by a person with a workplace injury, that is myself, to assist and enable both injured workers and employers to navigate through the system in the least amount of time possible, and in a holistic and sustainable manner. We quite literally reframe the way people think about the system, help them understand it, and then bid them farewell, hope that we never see them again. I know that sounds strange, but really when people hit that roadblock called workers' compensation, they actually need as much guidance as they can get. So my own journey has been about learning what it was, how to navigate it for myself, and then translate that into how to navigate it for everybody else.
Right. And you've been doing it for a while, 2014, I think.
I first became an advocate in the late 1990s, probably 97, 98, something like that. But I seriously took it on and become better known for what I do probably around about 2008. And then by the mid 20 teens, I was really on my way. And you got to a point where I actually had to say, have I done enough? Can I leave now? Or do I dig in deeper and stay? And the mystery of it all kept me here. So I'm still here doing this, finding different ways to help others navigate the system that hopefully they know enough about to pick up, or to send me an email and say, hey, we need some help.
So when I ask you to describe your best customer, it's someone who has an injury base at work, or is it broader than that?
It's actually broader than that. The best people to work with are the ones who actually don't have any need to understand workers' compensation. That way you can actually pre-plan and go, okay, so, and I just use hairdressing as an industry. In every industry, there are known injuries, known workplace injuries. So if a hairdresser is just, going to put the key in the door on Monday morning, so they've had no history at all of workers' compensation, but they're going to have a team of 15 people working under them, then they actually need to know not just when the workers' compensation levy is due, but what the workers' compensation system is going to require of them if a workplace injury actually happens. So that's actually the best place to plan. I mean, we have all these all these policies, we have all these guidelines of what we do when somebody comes in and trips over something. We protect our public liability, but we don't protect our workplace family. So the best one really is to sit down and go, okay, how do we handle this? Who's going to be responsible for this? What assistance do we need? Where do we find that assistance?
Okay, so you're looking at both ends of the spectrum.
Oh, heck yeah.
Yep. Okay. So, so you look as though you're working out of a home office.
I am at the moment, yes.
We've all been through the pandemic.
Oh, yes.
What things did you implement in the pandemic that has stuck with you in the business going forward?
I think the pandemic actually gave us a whole brand new set of opportunities to dig inside ourselves, regardless of what industry we're in. It, we suddenly all hit a barrier at the same time, and we had to reevaluate who we are and what we're doing and how we can navigate this. Because of the office space that we were working in being a pre-pandemic, it in a way it was quite serendipitous because the lease was up for renewal, so we chose not to renew the lease, and then just move back into. I mean, I worked from home most days. I probably for about 6-7 months before the pandemic hit, I was working remotely anyway. And because of the style of my work, I work in all parts of Australia. So it was nothing unusual for me to be away from the office. So the spare corner in my lounge room just became the permanent office. So I work out from here. So, yeah, just
Thank you, and the like. Yep.
Yeah. So I invested in a home studio, and quite literally, I mean, my work really, apart from Australia, I do work internationally as well. So the home studio just got upgraded, and you moved on from there.
Okay, it's fascinating, isn't it? You know, one of the things I did, I blessed had the opportunity that right at the start of the pandemic, we were looking to move. I live in Barrel. We were looking to move, and we have, as happens, really a great real estate deal. And we bought a house for us to live in, and we bought the second house next door. My commute these days is literally I climb the fence, and it's
Yes, they hadn't worked out that's what the gate's for.
that's right, and that's about 15 meters walk. But it's been a huge benefit for me because I mean one of the issues, of course, is working from home, which so many people do, is actually getting the separation.
Yeah, and that is why I purposely schedule my day to go out for coffee. I mean, I could have invested in a coffee machine.
Of course.
But I made that decision a long time ago that I would never have coffee at home. Coffee for me is always a social thing.
Yep.
Even when the pandemic hit and so many coffee shops were, or the coffee shop that I go to, that went from being able to sit down and have a coffee, that went down, moved to just takeaways only. I still went out and got coffee, because you just have to get out of your own headspace.
Yeah. It's a really good point you're making there, Rosemary. My local is about 600 meters off the road, and at least once a day I walk up there and have a chat with Nick, the proprietor, and he makes me coffee and the way I like, and I get a lot of walking.
And the same for me. I'm about 500 meters from my coffee shop. I can't tell you the last time I actually ordered a coffee because they know when I sit down and come in and sit down, they know exactly what my order is.
Yeah.
And the odd thing is they even know if I sit in one part of the coffee shop that I'm having coffee on my own, but if I sit in another part that I'm actually expecting someone to come and join me.
There we go.
So I've got them trained really well.
So let's talk about the future. What does it look like, and what are the challenges you're facing in your business?
I think that the challenges are still the same today as they were. Workers' compensation is not something that's widely discussed in the business industry, and I deal with mainly small to medium employers who don't have a HR department, don't have time to really understand what workers' compensation is, what the requirements are. So when I get a call saying, "Can you come and help?" I know that come and help means unscrambling the egg after it's been gone cold, sitting on the plate, and so there's just that first hour and a half is just sitting with them, going, "Okay, what are you worried about? Where are your concerns?" Once those concerns are spoken, they don't seem to be quite so bad, and then I can look at the issues one by one and say, "Okay, this is how we handle it. This is what we do. This is how we go." And because with great respect to all my professional colleagues, because I come from a community direction, the aspect I work on is more personal, and the impact on not just on the employer or on the business, but actually on the person who is the employer and on the person who is the injured worker. The rest of it is all legal stuff that needs to be done. It's all covered by the legislation. We can't avoid a lot of that. But we can lessen the impact of it by simply understanding and having it explained in a way that the employers who are going to be listening to this actually understand they do have a role to play, and they can change the course of the trajectory that's been set by the system simply by saying, "I need you to understand I like this person. I want this person to come back to work." Workplace family to me is no different to any other family. It's important to keep that human contact intact as much as possible. So we work together, and it's nothing for the employer and the injured worker and myself to sit down and navigate a way through the system and then tell the system this is how we're doing it. Upsets the system a lot, but it saves a lot of the heartache, a lot of the angst that explodes simply because people don't know what they don't know.
Okay, I'm going to bring you back to the question. What are the challenges moving forward? I mean, how do you scale this as an example, or don't you?
You scale it the same as any other business. There are people besides myself in that work within Craig's table. I guess though that I am the main point of call to start with, which is why I invested in the studio, because Zoom calls became the norm for everybody. So I can quite literally fit in half-hour conversations with anyone, anywhere in Australia.
Right.
So you just, same as any other business, you just bring in people as you need them.
Okay. So, tell me, you've been doing this for a while now. What do you think has been your biggest learning since you've become a business owner?
As a business owner, the biggest learning is don't believe you know everything. And because I work from home, I actually, when I start work in the morning, it's a ritual for me to walk out the door, lock the door behind me, walk around the building, and come back in again, ready to start work. So if for anyone who's working from home, don't just get up from the kitchen table and go across to the dining table and think that you've got that mindset ready to go, because you really haven't. You actually have to travel a distance and not worry about the washing on the line or the breakfast dishes that are still in the sink or whatever it is that did you make sure that little Johnny or Jenny pack their homework and all the rest of it. No, you actually have to be in a business mindset. So for me, and I've recommended this to many others who work from home, go out, lock the door behind you, just the same as you would if you were getting in the car and driving to work. Take 5-minute walk and come back in and say, okay, I'm ready to work now. And put that whole rest of the house out of your mind.
I'd argue you do the same thing at the end of the day as well.
Yeah, I do. At the end of the day, I will go down, go out and walk backwards, or do the lap.
Yep.
And debrief myself. So when I come back in, the studio's turned off. And if I've had a particularly hard day, I will even put a cover over over the studio computer, just so as I know, don't go back and touch that again. It'll be still there tomorrow. Because if the office was 15K away as it used to be, I wouldn't be going back and checking it. So I quite literally do cover it and just say it's not there.
Good piece of advice. Thank you. So when you think about the word successful, who springs to mind? And tell me why.
For me, the word successful, or the name successful, belongs to a dear friend of mine who is sadly no longer with us. His name was David DePaulo. David was a megalith within workers' compensation. If David decided something, then it was, okay, yeah, well, that's what David's decided to do. And everybody just flocked to him. He had that awe about him, that you fell in love with him and you trusted him and you liked him all at the same time, and all within the first 10 seconds of meeting him. He controlled a room just simply by walking in it. But he was so generous and so kind with everybody. He actually understood that, as strange as this may seem, without injured workers or without someone going to work and becoming injured, there would be no reason for the workers' compensation system to exist. So he actually put injured workers on an equal level to everyone. And he would celebrate the person, not the injury. I don't think he ever focused on anyone's injuries. It was always the person. So in 2021, I was actually awarded the Comp Laude, Summa Cum Laude, which is actually named after David. It was the biggest honour that I could ever achieve. There's, people say, well, wouldn't you like, an Australian honour? Well, yeah, I would. But I got an international one named after a man who I admire so greatly.
Is he? Does he have a wife, partner, a child still alive?
Yes, yeah, his family's still alive, and I'm still.
Send them a link to this.
I will. Yeah, I have a photo of David over my desk, over my other, because I've got two desks in here. So over my other desk, there's David, and he's smiling, and it's just who I remember him to be. So to say that success, success has many shades of colours to it, but for me, David was the gold star on top of all of it.
Right. Thank you for sharing that with us.
It's okay.
Last two questions. Are you a reader? Do you listen to podcasts? Any you could recommend?
I learned to read when I was about 3. I was never a good sleeper as a child. So my mum taught me to read. So she would prop me up with books while the rest of the family went to bed, and I would read. And eventually I would fall asleep. So yes, I am a constant reader. And I read everything. From mystical tales through to industry magazines. But I don't. I'm currently reading Your Next 5 Moves by Patrick Bet-David. This I don't know if you can see that. This is how you read a book. You actually read it by marking it, which is another way that another reason.
Let's show you the cover of that. Again, I haven't heard of that. Your Next 5 Moves. Okay, thank you.
I don't know when it was released. It's not that old. Nobody actually ever borrows books from me, simply because they're marked with passages, highlighted with passages. I've got my scribble notes throughout all of them. But I also read anything that Lee Childs writes.
Oh, yeah.
Because you actually have to go on someone else's journey and figure out the whodunits. Because once you start to figure out the whodunits, when a challenging issue comes up against you, you can take that step back and go, where were the clues? Where are the little loose threads that need to be picked up? Because quite often the issue that's confronting you really isn't the issue that you need to deal with. It's the small, tiny little things that you need to put in place first. So, yeah, I must, I am a fan of the Jack Reacher books, but I also read Tolkien. I've also read a lot of Shakespeare. It's just, I think you actually have to read outside of whatever it is that you are working in, because if you can take hints and ideas from something, then you can work with just about anything.
Yeah, it's a really interesting insight, Rosemary, you made there. I'm a coach. I help CEOs and business leaders grow their businesses and grow themselves. I also have coaches, and I'm always looking to learn. I mean, I'm not just so. I'm like you. I can never lend books either.
I can see that.
Yeah, but they are, because they're all highlighted. I've got the magic highlight pens everywhere.
Yes.
But one of my coaches, one of my current coaches, is probably one of the top coaches in the world, entrepreneurial coaches. And his passion, and he reads whenever he stops work, he's reading detective novels, and a very similar reason to you. Number one, it's breaking him away from, thinking about business all the time. Because one of the problems with entrepreneurs is if we don't actively stop thinking about business, we'll burn ourselves out very quickly. Yes. So the concept of free, I coach this concept of free days, where getting my clients to actually really take themselves out of work and not work to rejuvenate. Yeah. And reading is a big part of that for me. So it's something I love. So I'll tell you a fun story about that. So I've got 2 children, a 9-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old son. And my daughter is an avid reader, like I am. My son is not. And frankly, will do anything not to read. So yesterday morning, and the other thing is, my daughter is, so I'm off subject a bit. My daughter is very passionate, throws herself into my arms, cuddles all day type thing. Where my son is a typical boy. He doesn't really want to be, I joke with him about, stay at home and cuddle dad all day. And it's, oh, dad. Anyway, so yesterday morning, I gave him the choice of reading a book or coming for a cuddle. And now whenever I mention a book in the last 24 hours, he throws himself into my arms. I'm not achieving the goal of getting him to read, but I am achieving the goal of having lots of cuddles with my son. So interesting to see where that one goes.
You might not be, the dad of the moment when he says, I think I'll just go and read Robin Hood.
Well, exactly right. And he starts reading a book rather than cuddles. I know that's something. Well, I mean, I'm achieving my.
I like, yes, I like that.
So my last question, any last piece of advice or parting words?
There's many last bits of advice. Always admit when you don't know that you don't know, and ask around, ask your network. Do you know someone? Can you point me in the direction of? Because I often, and I will admit it, I am geographically challenged. In other words, I get lost quite easily.
My wife calls herself the aggravator as against the navigator.
Yep. My mum was also geographically challenged, though she would never admit that she got lost. She'd just say that she took the scenic route. So yeah, if you're lost and you need to be somewhere at a certain time, the first thing you do is you look for someone who can point you in a direction. I was speaking at a conference in an area of Sydney I hadn't been to, for no reason other than I actually had never been, needed to go to that particular area of Sydney. And I knew you needed to be there on time. I gave myself an extra half an hour just to make sure that if I went south instead of going north, that I would have time to recalibrate. And in the end, due to all the roadworks and detours and everything that are going on because of all the building that's happening, I was totally lost. So I walked into a hotel reception and I said, "This is where I need to be. Can you tell me how to get there?" And the receptionist looked at me. She said, "You cross the street and you walk up the hill." So simply, it was, but I knew I needed that. So when you're faced with that challenge, ask your network, do you know someone? Because pride does come before a fall. And if you're not game enough to reach out and say, need a little bit of help with this, with people that you trust, then you're never going to get past that. The other thing that I want people to do is actually volunteer at their local community college to teach something. Even if it's just for, a 6-week course in something that they know they're good at, because it's that teaching of something that will actually teach to help them learn more about what they're capable of. And I teach internationally. And I got to tell you, sometimes the 3 a.m. starts for some of the webinars that I attend, they can be a bit of a challenge, but I actually learn more by sitting there at 3 a.m. in the morning and engaging with people who are speaking in and not always within the workers' compensation industry. If there's a webinar going on carrot growing, and I and it's not going to cost me anything, then I will attend that, because there will be something in that will trigger a thought process for me, and maybe within the next day or two, or maybe it may not be for a year, but something in that will sink in, and I'll go, yeah, okay, that's fine. I'll go back to those notes that I made and take that information forward. So, yeah,
it's a really good point you're making. I was asked to speak at an association of strata managers recently, and on business growth, and it was a bit of a left field invitation. No guy likes speaking. I mean, try and listen to me, try and shut me up. But I went up and spoke for a couple of hours with these people, and a couple of things came out of there from their questions, which triggered me thinking in a different way, which has actually fundamentally changed one aspect of the way I coach. And as you say, it's getting out there, getting exposed. People ask you questions, raising pieces with you, and getting input from a variety of sources. I Another anecdote I was watching with my kids. They shouldn't be watching. They're too young to be watching it, really. Jeremy Clarkson's series on Clarkson's Farm.
Yes.
And I'd say to the kids, because the amount of swearing that goes on, they really shouldn't be watching it. But it's there's lots of lessons and lots of fun in it. But one of my clients happens to be a wholesaler, reseller in the agricultural area. And on this one snippet of 30 seconds on this show, Clarkson's inside a big farm wholesaler retailer in the UK, a big box type building. And he's just saying, "Oh, this is my new favorite store," which led me to afterwards jump onto the website of this place and found the website, which led me to go down and see the chair and the CEO of my client and say, "Have you seen this?" Which potentially will lead to a fundamental change in the way they do business. Amazing where you get ideas from.
Oh, I get ideas just from browsing around and people watching. Especially when you're sitting in the coffee shop, you see that you're down there around about the same time every day, and you see other people who are also there at the same time, and you make up these names in your head for them because you're never going to speak to them, but you watch what they do. They walk the same direction. They walk at the same pace. They don't look, they don't look sideways. They look down at the floor. They don't make eye contact. And then you see the person that immediately follows them is smiling and engaging with everybody. And you think, how is it that we can take that smile and transplant it onto this other person? And that actually does start that whole thought process of how do we do this? How can I take someone who is not brave, but needs to ask questions? So I do really strange things to them. I actually write them, scribble them out a license to be heard. And I authorize it, I sign it, I authorize it, I date it, and when you're an employer and you don't really know what this industry is like or what questions you can ask, suddenly this piece of paper, which means diddly squat in the real world, they find courage to speak up and go, I actually need to understand this. Don't speak over me. Slow down. I need to ask questions. And it's always amazing when you think all they've got, the only thing they've got is a tiny little bit of sticky note, post-it note with I have a license to be heard. We all have the license to be heard, but that piece of paper makes a difference. And that just comes from watching people go, how do I take that smile from that person and put it over there? Because that's really all I did.
Fabulous. Rosemary, thank you so much for your time.
That's okay. It's been a pleasure speaking with you.
I'm saying. Thank you.